Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. Prime Minister Modi has pitched India's vision for a raft of G20-led initiatives, including a global front to dismantle the drug terror nexus, the setting up of a healthcare response team to tackle health emergencies and natural disasters, and pushed for an African Skills Multiplier drive at the 20th G20 Summit in Johannesburg in South Africa. Speaking at the first session of the summit that focused on inclusive and sustainable growth, Prime Minister Modi has said that to overcome the challenge of drug trafficking, especially the spread of extremely dangerous substances like fentanyl, India proposes a G20 initiative on countering the drug terror nexus. He has pushed three other key proposals. Number one is he proposed creation of a G20 Global Traditional Knowledge Repository. Number two, he has proposed the G20 Africa Skills Multiplier initiative with collective goals to create 1 million certified trainers and number. And number three is the setting up of a G20 Global Healthcare Response Team in an effort to create teams of trained medical experts. All right, so these are some of the novel initiatives that the Prime Minister has recommended, and of course he's been a pioneer in a number of initiatives that have been taken in the past as well, especially what transpired when the G20 summit took place in India some time ago. We'll talk about this and the implications of the Prime Minister has suggested with our guest. Joining us on the broadcast is Ambassador Gauri Shankar Gupta, former diplomat. Major General A.K. Sivaj, former Chief of Territorial Army and Senior Defence Expert, is with us on the program as well. Mr. Jayajit Bhattacharya, President of CDPR, also joins us on the broadcast. Dr. Bhattacharya, I'll begin with you. First of all, your initial reaction to what the Prime Minister has proposed. Now, he's always looked at the G20 as a platform, as basically a consortium of people who can make movable and implementable ideas.
The Prime Minister has taken the leadership for G20 in a manner that's inclusive of the global South. And I think the 3 points he has raised is largely focused on the global South, starting with the issue of terrorism, which has been plaguing countries like India. And we have recently seen that terrorism has been converted into an actual conflict between two nuclear-armed nations. And obviously, state-sponsored terrorism is a large issue. And we have also seen as recently as last week where white-collar terrorism has been taking root in this country, and so has been the experience in lots of African countries. So terrorism is definitely a very key issue for the G20 and specifically the Global South. Along with it, the narcotics trade is going hand in hand. The channels which fund the funding of terrorism is the same channels through which drugs are being distributed to the rest of the world, including fentanyl, which has been the key focus for the US government. And therefore, dismantling of the terrorist network goes hand in hand in dismantling the narcotics network. We have seen again and again, be it the Golden Triangle, be it the Pakistan-Afghan border, narcotics is being used in a big way to fund terror. And therefore, the very particular point of the Prime Minister that we need to focus on both terrorism and the drug terror nexus. In addition, for the world to grow, Africa needs to grow. And for Africa to grow, we need to have a significant amount of skills to be put into Africa, and which is where his second initiative of focusing on skill development in Africa, I think is a very visionary statement and a very statesmanly statement that he has put on the table. So clearly, the Prime Minister continues to focus on Global South within G20. He was the one who brought the African Union under G20 and has been a very vocal supporter of Global South within the G20.
Absolutely. General Sivaj, the Prime Minister also said that terror can only be taken care of, terror can only be dismantled if the source of funding is cut off. And fentanyl is not only a Western problem, it's not only an American problem. We have seen what the Americans have been doing when it comes to Venezuela and all the other boats that have been shot down by American forces, just to make sure that the money that comes from fentanyl and other drug sources does not corrupt the system and the people at large in a country like the United States. The Prime Minister has in fact put out this visionary statement that perhaps most of the other members of the G20 may not have even thought of.
Very correct. We need no doubt about it. You see, two, three, points stand out in Prime Minister's preliminary speech. One very correctly, necro-terrorism. You see, the point is that terrorism survive on the money which is earned through the drugs. So until you cut down and choke the finances of this terrorism, which is mainly the drugs, you will not able to fight against terrorism completely in the world. You see anywhere in the world, you find it wherever there is a necro-terrorism, the drugs are the one which is playing a major role. Very rightly brought out Afghanistan-Pakistan border, and all these modules which are functioning in India, they are financed by the Pakistan, and the money which is mainly coming through drugs. Now Jamaat-ul-Dawa and also you can say Fly Insaniyat Foundation, they are considered to be a charitable organization of Lashkar-e-Toba, but what they are actually doing is they are collecting money through the smuggling of the drugs, and that is their main source of income, and they part a lot of money to ISIL. So therefore the drug is the main issue today which Prime Minister has brought in, and you have to choke these finances, and you also have to point out to those countries which are now basically involved in this menace, which Pakistan is one of them. And Pakistan sponsoring terrorism not only in India, it is also doing in Afghanistan, it is also doing in Iran by sending Jaisal al-Adl, and all this module, all this terrorist organization, their basic funding is through the drugs, and you have to now choke that. The fentanyl is one of this, it has a medicinal value, but it is being misused all over the world, and it is a part of a larger conspiracy as a drug. Now, another 2-3 issues which Vineet he has spoken is very important. He is the one who said that India has brought the African Union in G20. He said there has to be an inclusive and sustainable growth. This growth in the world is one-sided. The African continent or the global south is left behind. Unless you do not take them with us, there is no point of the world economy growing. That's a very, very important point which he has pointed out. The second point which he again said was very important is disaster mitigation funds. He says all over the world there are disasters take place, and that is the time when the countries are running around to finance it. Why can't we have a disaster mitigation fund? He talks about one earth, one family, one future. That's a very important thing. He's seeing a larger picture, Vasudeva Kutumbam. So Prime Minister Modi is a visionary leader which has brought out a lot of things in this G20 meeting, which is in the preliminary stage, and he talks that let's take everyone together, and especially the global south, because we are the voice of the global south. That is also very important, and very rightly brought out the drugs is the main source of terror funding, and unless you don't choke it, you will not find that you can find international terrorism that effectively. Vineet.
Absolutely right. Ambassador Gauri Shankar, your thoughts on what the Prime Minister has enunciated at this important forum? We are compelled to also look at how successful India's initiatives were when we were the hosts of the G20 in India a couple of years ago, and that tradition of initiative, as well as that tradition, or rather that culture of modernizing a forum through Indian values still continues with the Prime Minister's suggestions.
Thank you very much, Vineet. It is first of all, I would like to mention 2 points. One is that G20 forum has emerged as a global voice in the last, say, 1 decade, particularly after 2008, or so we can say 1.5 decades. It represents practically 85% of global GDP and 85% of global population. There is no forum in the world which is as big as this. And first time this forum is meeting on the African soil. This has not happened in the past so far. And also continuously fourth presidency of this forum has gone to a developing country after Indonesia, India, Brazil, and now South Africa. So this has been a very significant development. And in this forum, if you look at the leaders, I think Prime Minister Modi's presence is the most significant, because some other world leaders have not come to the forum. They have sent their deputies or foreign ministers to attend the forum. And therefore everybody is looking towards Prime Minister Modi and his leadership. Now he made certain points which are absolutely important. I think narco trade and narco terror funding has already been addressed by the previous panelists on this issue. Now I would like to address the issue of skill development. India has a big program run by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where African young people are coming to develop their skills in different form. This is called ITEC, India's Technical and Economic Cooperation Program, under which we have been imparting training to, I'm sure, more than 1 million people have passed through that process and have given outcome results, good results in their own country in different fields. So that is one area where our Prime Minister has emphasized that skill development is very important for economic development, and then only we can actually move towards an inclusive society. Now, inclusive society is not, surviving on the basis of temporary aid from developed nations. It has to become self-sufficient, and therefore the developed nations should provide proper training and skills to the people of South. Now, Global South is comparatively, poor in this area, and that is what PM has taken over. And he also emphasized the need of Global South in the context because India was the one which actually, brought about inclusion of African Union into G20. Earlier, African Union was not part of it, and which was a big missing link to the global development. So that is very important. Another issue which he has brought in is, the civilizational collection of the knowledge. Now this is concerning the entire, southern part of the world, where civilizations have been very rich, but their knowledge has not been collected and appreciated by the world. When I was in UNESCO, we tried to do something on that, and we did succeed in bringing in what we call intangible heritage of the world under UNESCO's heritage system. So that has to be done properly so that these societies are properly understood, because the Western world has failed to understand the civilizational legacies and values of these societies even today, despite having ruled some of these countries for a very long time. So that is also a very, very important step which PM has initiated or suggested. Now, apart from that, environment remains one of the major issues, and I think PM has emphasized on that sustainable development and addressing environmental problems remains a major issue at global level. While the emissions and contamination are caused primarily by the developed countries in the past and also in the present, the suffering are mostly by the developing countries, and they are not able to provide them either the technology or the funding to deal with this problem, and that issue remains completely I would say paralyzed despite so many meetings of COP under the environmental treaties. And therefore this issue has acquired a new significance. We in India, we are also facing this issue. Our water bodies are getting contaminated, the air pollution is increasing, even the soil is getting contaminated. So this is a global problem, mainly in the what we call global south. While the developed countries have been able to address their problems to some extent, and also they are not facing this problem that seriously because of the what we call sparse population in those countries. So these are the issues which have been raised by the Prime Minister. And of course, the terror issue is very, very important. The terror funding, particularly, countries like Pakistan, they are not only creating problems for India, but they are a global terror network. They provide support. All the, global terror incidents which have been happening in the last, say, several decades, you will find their footprint in Pakistan in some way or the other. Either the terrorists are from Pakistan, or they were trained in Pakistan, or they were, their ideology was, shaped there in Pakistan. So all these things have to be taken into account. The developed world is ignoring that part, and therefore we have to highlight this issue.
You're quite right, and you're quite right, sir. The developed countries are in fact doing and going about their own business. But Mr. Bhattacharya, it's important to understand that the G20 is a vehicle through which change can be driven. There is an impetus, a push towards inclusive economic growth, which the global south has been bereft of. And also, Mr. Bhattacharya, there is also this rage about harnessing critical minerals for inclusive growth and sustainable government and movement and development. Is that also something which is going to form the highlights of every G20 summit, or rather other forums such as the G20 for the next few years?
I think you've hit on a very critical issue. What is happening is the neo-colonialism is being played out again with a vengeance. The developed countries and the economies need access to the rare earth metals. They also need access to all other minerals, which is copper, uranium, and so on and so forth. And what we see is that bulk of it is coming from the global south, including Africa. And in spite of these global south providing bulk of the raw materials and minerals needed for the lifestyle that has been enjoyed by the more advanced economies, the per capita income, the lifestyle of those living in the global south are not at par, and therefore the questions you asked are absolutely pertinent. So as the race for access to rare earth metals accelerates, we see more and more exploitation going up in places like Africa. If you look at Africa, it has roughly the same population now as India has, but its economy is only about 2/3 of India's economy. And if you compare Africa with other countries, obviously it does far more badly. Now within Africa, we have a few economies whose per capita income is much higher, such as Egypt and South Africa, and therefore there are many more countries and populations within Africa which are far worse off than even this average that we're talking about, because they are the ones who are pulling down the average. And hence all the statements of Prime Minister Modi at G20 becomes critical, that we need to have a more equitable future as we move forward. And if we do not have that equitable future in terms of healthcare, in terms of skills, in terms of peace and avoiding terrorism, because terrorism is also being used as a weapon to access these minerals. If you see within Africa what is happening, there are state and non-state terrorist groups which are fighting over access towards these minerals and mines and so on and so forth. And therefore, taking out and stamping out terrorism is an important part of equitable development. And unless we provide, as the Prime Minister had said, some healthcare access and skill development and stamping out terrorism, it'll be difficult for the global south, and particularly Africa and even Latin America, to start growing at a pace that they should be developing.
Mr. Bhattacharya, I also want to pick up your brain on the adoption of the G20 declaration and the Americans blocking it because of course, policy disagreements. What did you make of that?
It was quite unfortunate because till now we have been looking at America as the global leader. Clearly, with their step of, and it's a very retrograde step of blocking this declaration, they're basically standing down from their leadership position. And it is now for the rest of the world to stand in for that leadership. I think America has basically declared that they are no more the leaders of the world. And I think it's showing up in every sphere of global action, be it in terms of their own economy, be it in terms of their response, be it in terms of putting tariffs. They're behaving as if they are a developing economy because they are harking for tariffs to be increased, and now blocking the declaration in G20 in a very unstatesmanly manner. It does not show up well for America or their global leadership. So clearly we have now firmly moved into an era of multipolarity with the US stepping down from their leadership position.
Right. General Sivach, security consensus and of course, the issues pertaining to terrorism as well as the free movement of arms and ammunition across seas is also a concern that India has voiced in the past as well. If you look at what happened at the Red Fort, or for that matter, other terrorist attacks which have happened in India as well as other parts of the country, the routes that have been taken usually go back to some of the nations which are a part of G20 as well. Do you think in that direction too, this forum can play an important part in discouraging such activities?
Very, absolutely correct. The point is, wherever the terrorism is flourishing, you find its roots through certain countries, and the drugs plays a pivotal role because the terrorism cannot survive until it is financed. And one of the main source of financing of terrorism is through drug money. And you see this white collar terror ecosystem which have been unearthed in India now. It is a new type of terrorism which has surprised everyone else. Everyone thought that the doctors are considered as a very respectable part of the society. They give life to the people, not take the life. But this terrorism ecosystem, which is a white collar which has come out, now you are finding that its roots are going not only toward Turkey and Pakistan, and the finances are also going toward that they have been also financed through a drug money. So the drugs are playing a major role in financing terrorism, and you have to choke that, and you have to cut this supply chain. And this is the message which Prime Minister Modi has conveyed to the world leaders of the G20, that until and unless you do not fight collectively against terrorism, until and unless you do not choke the finances of this terrorism, the terrorism battle cannot be fought. And that is, the finger is also pointed toward Pakistan, though it is not a part of G20, because you remember, out of 100 terrorists in the world, the 87 terrorists are those which are either belong to Pakistan or they have roots in Pakistan. So there is no denying the fact that there are certain places which have become hub center of terrorism, and this terrorism is surviving because a lot of drug money is coming, and which is unaccounted for. And unfortunately, the world is not very serious in taking action against that. The point is that we talk about our national interest, that sometime in your national interest, you do not see a larger picture. When Prime Minister Modi is saying, one earth, one family, one future, he is trying to convey that basically world is one family and we have to progress together. And this point, he is mainly also talking about the global south. The global south has been left behind in the world growth, and he said until as you do not take with them, if you exploit their resources and do not empower them and give them a skill, they will be left behind. And there is no use of this development in the world when one part of the world is not developed. So automatically he says that those part of the world which is undeveloped, their drugs plays a more major role.
We completely agree with you, sir, but we do have a paucity of time. But appreciate everybody who joined in and weighed in on this important bit of input that India has had to made at the G20. Breaking news coming in. Prime Minister Modi, in fact, has tweeted and taken to social media platform X to announce the launch of the Australia-Canada-India Technology and Innovation Partnership. The initiative aims to deepen trilateral cooperation in emerging technologies, digital innovation, critical minerals, clean energy solutions, and research collaboration. The partnership is positioned as a strategic effort to strengthen supply chains, boost tech-driven growth, and expand opportunities for startups and scientific institutions across 3 countries. This announcement comes after the Prime Minister's meeting with both Anthony Albanese and Mark Carney on the sidelines of the G20 Summit. All right, we take a short break on that note. We'll be right back.